For decades, the skies above us have been dominated by two giants, Boeing and Airbus, a duopoly so powerful it shaped the modern aviation world. But that grip is starting to loosen. From the heart of China comes a new contender, the Comac C919. This aircraft isn't just another plane, it's a statement, a challenge to the Western dominance of the skies. How did this ambitious jet go from concept to a real threat to Boeing and Airbus? And which airline will be brave enough to operate it first? Let's dive in. For decades, Boeing in the US and Airbus in Europe have ruled the narrow-body, single-aisle aircraft segment, the backbone of most commercial flights worldwide. Names like the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320 aren't just planes. They're symbols of technological excellence and the engines of short and medium haul air travel across the globe. Yet China has been quietly planning its breakthrough, with the ambition of claiming control over its own skies. China introduced the Comac C919, its first domestically developed narrow-body, medium-range aircraft designed to rival Western icons. This isn't just a technological project, it's a bold move to take control of the aviation supply chain, long dominated by Western technology, engines, and systems. The C919 was developed by the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. Founded in 2008 with strong government backing, the goals were clear from the start: reduce reliance on imported aircraft, build a Chinese aviation icon, and gradually challenge Boeing and Airbus's dominance. The aircraft design was unveiled in 2008. But it wasn't until 2015 that the first prototype appeared. The path to the skies was far from easy. Nearly a decade of flight testing, technical adjustments, design refinements, and regulatory hurdles followed. From safety certifications to proving its operational capabilities, the C919 had to pass every challenge. Finally, on September 20, 2022, it received type certification from the Civil Aviation Administration of China, marking its readiness for commercial service. Just 3 months later, on December 20, 2022, the first C919 was delivered to China Eastern Airlines, beginning its commercial journey. While international adoption remains a challenge, the aircraft's arrival sends a clear signal: the era of unchallenged Boeing and Airbus dominance may be facing a new competitor from the East. What makes the C919 special enough to challenge the Western giants? On paper, its specifications may seem modest. It carries 158 to 168 passengers with a range of up to 5,555 kilometers, enough for domestic and regional routes. But every design choice reflects a careful strategy. The aircraft features modern aerodynamics, fly-by-wire systems, and a digital cockpit with intuitive displays. While many internal components come from Western suppliers like GE and Honeywell, the C919 is optimized for cost efficiency, both in purchase price and operational costs. At a time when fuel prices and maintenance expenses weigh heavily on airlines, the C919 emerges as a potential game-changer. But the true ambition behind the C919 goes beyond the plane itself. China is building an entire aerospace ecosystem, factories, supply chains, and domestic capabilities to gradually capture market share. Comac's long-term goal is to secure at least 1/3 of China's narrow-body market and expand internationally. Currently, over 1,000 orders have been placed, mostly from domestic airlines and leasing companies, laying the foundation for mass production and lower unit costs. International interest has also begun. Brunei's startup airline Galapair made headlines with a letter of intent for 30 aircraft, including 15 C919s, a symbolic first step toward the global market. Brazilian cargo airline Total Linus has also expressed interest, and rumors suggest some Western carriers are quietly in talks as well. Michael O'Leary, CEO of Europe's largest low-cost carrier Ryanair, has openly expressed interest in purchasing the C919, provided Comac offers competitive pricing. A Chinese aircraft flying European skies, once unimaginable, is now a real possibility. Timing has played a crucial role. While Boeing and Airbus struggle with post-pandemic disruptions, production delays, and supply shortages, Comac is advancing rapidly. Airlines facing multi-year waiting lists for A320s or 737 MAXs now see the C919 as a viable alternative backed by faster delivery. flexible terms, and prices up to 30% lower than the Western rivals. COMAC isn't just offering low prices. They're building a full support ecosystem: leasing, finance, maintenance, and technical services, all backed by Chinese institutions. For low-cost carriers, the C919 is becoming a more accessible, viable, and lower-risk option than ever. Geopolitics also plays a role. Strong ties between China and Gulf countries mean that purchasing Chinese aircraft is both a strategic and economic decision, opening doors for trade, investment, and political alignment. After decades under the Boeing-Airbus duopoly, a new contender is knocking on the door. But the hardest challenges remain. COMAC must earn global trust. Certification from the US FAA and European EASA is still pending, meaning the aircraft can't yet operate in most of the world's airspace. These certifications require years of rigorous testing, evaluations, and establishing credibility, a process Boeing and Airbus mastered over decades. Even beyond certification, airlines require complete operational support, spare parts, trained engineers, maintenance centers, pilot training, and 24/7 technical support. COMAC's global infrastructure is still in its infancy. Without it, reliability and trust remain hurdles. In commercial aviation, reliability outweighs price or appearance. A delayed part or technical issue can ground planes for days, causing lost revenue and frustrated passengers. To truly compete globally, COMAC must not only build a plane, but also an ecosystem of trust and support spanning continents. The C919 is more than a jet. It's China's statement to the world. Its journey is just beginning, but the aviation industry is watching closely. A new era is approaching, and the skies may never look the same again. The C919's story isn't just about a plane, it's about a nation reclaiming control of its skies. For decades, China relied on Western technology, engines from GE and avionics from Honeywell, airframes and systems largely imported. Each dependency meant higher costs, slower production, and limits on domestic autonomy. With the C919, China is breaking that cycle. Every component, every system, every engineering decision reflects a long-term vision. China wants to produce aircraft on its terms, for its people, and eventually, for the world. But ambition alone doesn't make a global player. To compete with Boeing and Airbus, COMAC must prove performance, safety, and reliability under real-world conditions. That's why the C919 underwent nearly a decade of testing, thousands of flight hours, engine stress tests, electronics calibration, and performance evaluations in extreme weather and operational scenarios. Every adjustment was an investment in credibility, signaling that this is more than a political project, it's a serious engineering effort. The first delivery to China, Eastern Airlines in December 2022, marked a historic milestone, but it was only the beginning. Domestically, the aircraft is already making waves. Airlines are seeing lower acquisition costs, fuel efficiency improvements, and simpler maintenance options. But to truly challenge Boeing and Airbus, COMAC must convince the world that the C919 is ready for international skies. That's where geopolitics enters the equation. China's growing economic ties with Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Latin America create a fertile ground for expansion. Leasing companies and airlines in countries with strong trade relations with Beijing are more willing to place early orders. For these carriers, buying a C919 is not just a business decision, it's a strategic partnership, a way to align with one of the fastest-growing aviation markets in the world. The aircraft must receive certification from the FAA in the US and EASA in Europe. Without these, the C919 remains grounded outside of friendly or emerging markets. Certification isn't just paperwork. It's years of rigorous scrutiny. Failures or inconsistencies can delay approval indefinitely. Boeing and Airbus have built decades of trust through consistent performance and transparency. COMAC, as a newcomer, faces cultural, technical, and political hurdles in proving it can meet these same standards, even after certification. Airlines don't just buy planes, they buy ecosystems. Pilots need training programs. Maintenance crews require technical manuals. Spare parts must be reliably available, and support teams must be reachable around the clock. For the C919 to truly challenge the Western giants, COMAC must replicate the operational network that Airbus and Boeing have built over decades. spanning continents and time zones. Yet, the timing could not be better. The world is facing an unprecedented aircraft shortage. Airlines are waiting years for new A320neos and 737 MAX jets. Supply chain disruptions and pandemic-related delays have left carriers desperate for alternatives. The C919 offers speed, flexibility, and lower costs, potentially undercutting Boeing and Airbus by up to 30%. An irresistible proposition for budget-conscious airlines. And there's another factor at play: national prestige. China isn't just selling a jet, it's exporting influence. Every C919 delivered abroad is a symbol of China's technological rise, its industrial capability, and its ability to challenge long-standing Western dominance. In markets where political alignment and trade relations matter, the C919 becomes both a practical solution and a geopolitical tool. For decades, the global commercial skies have been almost exclusively dominated by the two giants, Boeing and Airbus. However, that monopoly is beginning to shake as China launches an ambitious declaration with a C919 developed by. Notably, the C919 is gradually proving its potential to become a formidable third option as it continuously garners interest from international operators. How is this aircraft closing in on the status of a true rival to Boeing and Airbus? And who will be the first to operate it? Let's find out. In the narrow-body single-aisle aircraft segment, Boeing from the United States and Airbus from Europe have maintained an almost absolute dominance in the category that accounts for most commercial flights worldwide for a long time. Names like the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320 are not only symbols of technological excellence, but have also become the backbone of short and medium-haul networks for hundreds of airlines across the globe. Yet, in the face of this seemingly unshakable duopoly, China has been quietly planning a bold breakthrough, with the ambition of reclaiming autonomy over its own skies. China introduced the COMAC C919, the first domestically developed narrow-body medium-range aircraft designed to compete head-on with the Western icons. This is not merely a technological project, but a symbol of China's aspiration to take control of the aviation supply chain. An industry long dominated by the West in terms of technology, engines, and systems. The C919 project was assigned to COMAC, the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, established in 2008 with substantial backing from the Chinese government. From the very beginning, the objectives were clearly defined: reduce dependence on imported aircraft, build an aviation icon that's made in China, and gradually challenge the dominance of Airbus and Boeing. The design of the C919 was unveiled in the same year COMAC was founded, but it wasn't until 2015 that the first prototype was officially revealed. However, the path to conquering the skies has never been easy. The C919 underwent nearly a decade of flight testing, technical adjustments, design refinements, and numerous regulatory hurdles from safety certification and flight performance evaluations to proving its capability in the demanding environment of commercial aviation. Finally, on September 20, 2022, the C919 received its type certification from the Civil Aviation Administration of China, a major milestone marking its readiness for commercial operation. Just 3 months later, on December 20th, the first C919 was officially delivered to China Eastern Airlines, opening the first chapter in the commercial journey of this ambitious aircraft. While it still faces many challenges in breaking into international markets, the arrival of the aircraft has sent a clear signal. The era of unchallenged dominance by Airbus and Boeing is beginning to face a new contender from the East. So, what makes the C919 special enough to challenge the Western giants? But hang on, thanks for staying with us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. Join us on this journey and be the first to catch our latest updates. On paper, its specifications may not seem groundbreaking, but behind each number lies a carefully calculated strategy. The aircraft is designed to carry between 158 and 168 passengers with a maximum range of up to 5,555 kilometers, sufficient to serve domestic and regional routes, which are the most lucrative segments of the aviation market, especially in Asia, where travel demand shows no signs of slowing down. In terms of design, this aircraft is far from outdated. It features a modern aerodynamic configuration, fly-by-wire flight control systems, and an advanced digital cockpit with large LCD displays and intuitive interface technology. While much of the internal technology still comes from Western suppliers like GE and Honeywell, the C919 is optimized to be an economical choice both in purchase price and operational costs, at a time when global airlines are struggling with fuel prices, maintenance expenses, and rising aircraft costs. The aircraft emerges as a potential gammaker, but what truly makes the C919 remarkable isn't just the aircraft itself. It's the industrial ambition behind it. China isn't merely building a new plane. It's building a supply chain, an industry, and a fully integrated domestic aerospace ecosystem. Comarmoc's long-term goal is clear: to capture at least 1/3 of China's narrow-body aircraft market and gradually step onto the international stage. Currently, over 1,000 paper orders have been recorded, most of them from domestic airlines and leasing companies. This is enough to lay the groundwork for mass production and lower unit costs. However, things started to get interesting as the international market slowly began to open up. No one expected foreign customers to take a gamble on a made-in-China aircraft right from its first generation. Yet Galapair, a startup airline in Brunei, made headlines by signing a letter of intent with Comac to purchase up to 30 aircraft, including 15 C919 and 15 ARJ21. Now rebranded as the C99, this marked the first international order for the C919. A symbolic step toward the Chinese manufacturer's ambition to go global. The story doesn't stop in Southeast Asia. A Brazilian airline specializing in cargo and charter services has also expressed serious interest in the C919 to operate under an ACMI lease model. And when news broke that several Western carriers had quietly entered talks to purchase the aircraft, the global aviation community was genuinely stunned. It was something no one expected to happen this soon. What's even more remarkable is that Michael O'Leary, CEO of Ryanair, Europe's largest low-cost airline, has publicly expressed his desire to purchase the C919 multiple times with one clear condition: Comarmoc simply needs to offer it at a lower price than Boeing and Airbus. The idea of a Chinese aircraft bearing the Ryanair logo soaring across European skies once seemed unimaginable. But now it has the potential to reality. But why? Sometimes timing is the most powerful weapon, and right now, Comarmoc holds something that both Boeing and Airbus have lost: speed, agility, and an unbounded ambition to expand. Indeed, while the two Western giants are still entangled in post-pandemic disruptions, the Chinese manufacturer is quietly advancing. Just as the global market faces an unprecedented aircraft shortage, dozens of major airlines are stuck in production queues stretching 3 to 4 years. Airbus has been forced to admit it will not meet its A320neo production targets for 2025. Boeing, meanwhile, continues to struggle with its 737 MAX production crisis under heavy scrutiny from the FAA. The result is that the airlines have no choice. They must either wait or look for a way out. And the solution is the C919. Once an unthinkable option, now becoming strikingly realistic. Unburdened by thousands of backlogged orders, free from severe parts shortages, and directly backed by the Chinese government. Comac is stepping forward with an enticing proposition: faster delivery, more flexible terms, and prices up to 30% lower than Boeing and Airbus. And most importantly, readiness. But Comac isn't just offering low prices and hoping for the best. They are building a comprehensive support ecosystem, from favorable leasing finance, low interest rates, to full maintenance services, all backed by Chinese banks and state organizations. While low-cost carriers struggle with rising costs to own an A320 or 737 MAX, the C919 becomes a more accessible, viable, and lower-risk option than ever. And in a market where competition is no longer just about commerce, geopolitics plays an increasingly significant role. The growing ties between China and the Gulf nations go beyond oil or infrastructure. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been invested in ports, telecommunications, energy, and now the skies. For the GC countries, purchasing Chinese aircraft isn't just an economic solution. It's a political message, a strategic commitment, and a gateway to trade and investment benefits from Beijing. All these factors, the instability of the West, China's readiness, and the quiet shifts in the global power structure, are converging at a breaking point. After decades of being confined to the Boeing-Airbus duopoly, the aviation world is witnessing for the first time a third option. Bold, new, and impossible to ignore. Knocking at the door, but building an aircraft is just the beginning. COMAC has to overcome the hardest challenges. First, the real battle lies in convincing the world to trust it enough to let it take to the skies. This is the biggest challenge that COMAC must climb, earning global trust. While the C919 has been celebrated as the new face of China's aviation ambitions, it remains firmly shut out of the international stage. The aircraft has not yet received certification from the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration or the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, the two most influential regulatory bodies in global aviation. Without these crucial endorsements, this Chinese aircraft is effectively grounded outside of a limited number of countries. It cannot legally operate in the vast majority of the world's airspace, where safety standards, rules, and regulations are still dictated by Western authorities. So, despite its symbolic significance, the C919 is confined mostly to domestic skies and a handful of markets deemed less restrictive. For a company with global aspirations, this is a heavy shackle. However, overcoming regulatory barriers isn't simply about submitting documents or ticking boxes. FAA and EASA approvals require aircraft to undergo a grueling gauntlet.